Torah and its two-pronged concept to it. One is that it's going to be a revelation of the secrets of the Torah. One is going to be some changing of the halacha, it looks like. And the halacha that he brought down was the halacha of the schect of the shura bar. So he said that both of them need to be explained. How is Mashiach able to make changes or even bring out the secrets of the Torah, which seems less problematic, but nonetheless it's still problematic because if it's secrets that no man could ever understand and could never figure out on his own through the channels of the Pardes, Pshat, Rimesh, Drush, and Sod, then why is it even called Torah? It should be called Nevuah. And the question, of course, regarding the schcht of the Shura Bar, that suddenly this schcht is going to be kosher, we have a rule that the Torah is not allowed to change, not allowed to add to it, subtract to it, and certainly can't say, so how is this Shaykh Mashiach is going to come around and all of a sudden make something which is prohibited, going to make it mutter? Okay, so the first question we answered by explaining that the Mashiach is going to be called a prophet, yes, and that's what says Torah Chadasha, mi'iti, from me will come out, but teitzei, mi'iti teitzei, will come out from me, which means that even though he's going to be able to grasp it only by having Hashem speak to him, it's not something that man could ever come to on their own, but he's going to also be wiser than Shlomo, the wisest person that ever lived, and therefore he's going to be able to figure out how to explain into the language of seichel, of intellect in man, what it is that he experienced through prophecy.
Shlomo?
Shlomo HaMelech is the King Solomon.
Oh.
So, essentially this is why it's going to be called Torah and not Nevuah, because at the end of the day he's going to be able to, even though it requires basically God to reveal these things, no person can ever find them. Once they're revealed to Mashiach, he's going to be able to translate them into the language of man. And we said that this is similar but different to every kind of chiddush in Torah that ever happened, even in like before Mashiach comes, which is that, why is it called a chiddush? It was already given to Moshe Sinai, because a Talmud Vasik, everything that a bright student will come up with, we say it was already given to Moshe at Sinai. Nonetheless, it's still also called his chiddush. How do they go together? If it was already there in the Torah, why is it called his chiddush? Because basically he unearthed it. What Moshe was given was just the rules of the Torah. He wasn't given all the detailed information necessarily. So when someone comes along and uses those rules and finds a piece of new information, it is truly his. But at the same time, he didn't change the Torah or invent something, because really it was already there at first. But there's two levels of being hidden inside of the Torah. And we said the normal level upon which every sage has ever mined and accessed is a level called a helam, which is shaykh to gilui, or a helam sheb'metzias, something which is concealed but it's relevant to coming out, and it's already existing in its source. It has already like a Metzias there, and all you have to do is dig and find it. And we said this is like the concept of the fire inside a coal. The coal is already hot, and basically all you have to do is blow on it and a fire will come out. Obviously the fire was sitting in there before it came out. It was just in a state of concealment. So you have to do something to get it to come out, but it's already existing even before it comes out. Whereas we said like a flintstone, to get a spark to come out of a dormant rock, there's no spark in the rock to begin with. It's not sitting in there. And to get it out is like a tremendously vigorous thing that you have to do to the rock. So this is the difference between the chidushim that were brought out in the time of before Mashiach versus Mashiach's chidushim. That all the chidushim that were brought out before, they're already more or less right there to be found. It's just that it did require man to access them and to use the peak of his intellect to bring them out, but they weren't something which was beyond intellect, right? So therefore they could be found by human intellect, and they were. Whereas Mashiach's Torah, it's pashut beyond human intellect. A normal person cannot find it. It's not there to be found. It's godly intellect, which only God knows about. So therefore, Mashiach's finding it is basically revealing it from prophecy. And that's why it's called a chiddush. But so why is it not called nevuah, as we said? Because he's also going to be the wisest person in the world. He's going to be able to translate something which is beyond the comprehension of man to man, and therefore, again, it's not really new. What he's giving us is not new. It's not b'shamayim. I would say Torah is not b'shamayim. Everything in the Torah has to already be in the Torah. He's not allowed to make new out of the Torah. So I was saying, this is also not new. It's already in the Torah. Torah was given once, and the Mashiach's Torah was given in there with it. So there's nothing that's happened here that's like a real chiddush. It's just that such a chiddush at this level could never be found by anybody else but Mashiach.
So it shouldn't say that he's making a new Torah. He's just unlocking the Torah more, or locking the Torah to its fullest. Because he said the Mashiach is going to make a new Torah, but he's not going to make a new Torah. He's just going to reveal more of it.
Okay, but we'd still call that new. In other words, we say, it says Kol Masha Talmid Vasik Hasid L'Chadesh. Everything that a future student will find new, will Chadesh means to make new, Chiddush. Kvar Nitna L'Moshe Misina was already given to Moshe at Sinai. When a person comes up with something called a Chiddush, and he mamish like brings out a new piece of information in the Torah, it is called new. But together with the fact that it's called new, it's part of our religion that it's not brand new mamish. It was already in the Torah. In other words, it goes together. If it's truly Torah, and what he's coming up with is actually truth, then the proof of it is that it's Torah is that it was already given to Moshe Misina. Right. There is no Torah that wasn't already given there. However, no one's ever seen it before, and therefore it is relevant to call it new in the sense that we've never seen it before. It's brand new, right? It doesn't mean it's not part of Torah, but it does mean that it's new to creation. No one's ever seen it before.
What is the understanding that the Rebbe's Hasidus is that new Torah? Is that too complex of a question at this point?
I mean, yeah, let's see what the Rebbe's Torah is first, it'll come clear by itself. So, that was in the branch called the secrets that Mashiach is going to teach us. There was the other side of the story, which is the idea that he's going to create this new halacha. He's going to somehow change the concept of halacha, and that's more problematic. Okay, because seemingly, if you're going to change halachas, it's hard to call that new, or renewing something that was deep in. Like the Torah already paskin one way, he's going to seemingly change the psak. So over there, we said that the principle behind it is that again, we're working with just this one halacha right now. That in the future, the giant fish is going to schect the giant ox. And everyone's going to eat from it. This meal, called the meal of the Shur Habor and the Leviathan. And how, even though the fin is a jagged edge, and you're not allowed to shecht with a jagged edge, so the Gemara, the Midrash asks, how is this a kosher shechita? And the answer is Torah Chadasha Mi'iti Teitzei. Mashiach's going to come with a new Torah. It's going to show us how it's kosher.
Are we supposed to?
So what the Rebbe is saying there is that the answer is like a little bit simple, which is that the shechita of this particular animal and this particular fin was an exception to the rule of shechita. That even though we got all the laws of shechita and not shechting with the jagged edge was one of them, this particular shechita was always held back as an exception to the rule that it really is kosher al pi Torah, and it's the only one of its kind.
You're saying we should expect one giant mega fish to kill one giant mega cow when the Mashiach comes?
Mm-hmm.
For real, or is it for one giant?
Yeah.
But is it real,
yeah,
or is it an analogy?
No, it's real. Big fish.
We haven't discovered the depths of the ocean, man. It could happen.
Yeah.
I just read, they don't remember the source, but they were saying it's an internal spiritual battle.
Also, no, everything on the Torah, you know what the Pardes means? Pardes is an acronym for Pshat, Remesh, Drush, and Sod, which is basically the simple meaning, I don't know how you translate all these things, but the hinted meaning, the allegorical meaning, and the secret meaning, the Kabbalah. And the word together spells Pardes, which is where the word paradise comes from. And the idea is that the Torah is simultaneously speaking at 4 levels of truth at the same time. So every time you're going to see one thing in Torah, it's literal. There was a man called Avram Avinu, and we're not changing this story. That's history. Right. At the same time, he represents sort of, there's halachas you can learn out from the fact that he, let's say, for example, he stopped in and at the same hotels that he went to on his way to Egypt. At the way back from his Egypt, from there we learn a law. You're supposed to, give kavod lachsanya, whatever, just throwing things out there. Then there's the idea that he represents, kind of whatever, like let's just go to the secret level. He's like the sphera of chesed, of Atzilus, and he is a living embodiment of that, and we can learn all about Kabbalah through him, and Yitzchak and Yaakov. Like, all those things are simultaneously being taught on 4 different dimensions at the same time. That's the way all of Torah works. So the fact is, take this for example, it's true that the Leviathan and the Shur Abar represent spiritual concepts of how to live a daily life in a better way. It does not remove it from being simple truth. They're both 2 simultaneous realities that are happening. The Torah that's the wondrous, marvelous concept of Torah, is that it speaks on. By the way, it doesn't just speak on those levels. It's also speaking on angelic and spiritual worlds and keeping like nature itself together at the same time. There's a lot going on in Torah. So whenever you learn something, sort of like the mystical reason for it or the metaphorical reason for it, you have to take it into account. That's not removing it from its simple pshat at the same time. That it's teaching you a certain law or a piece of history.
I read also that Carl Jung got all of his insights from Dov Ber.
Who are these people?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Carl Jung is the father of psychoanalysis. He was like...
Freud was visited by Dov Ber.
Really? They both were.
And he went there, and his analysis of the Rebbe Rashab was that his mind is too large for his heart to contain it. Anyway, there's little stories about that. But so the Rebbe comes up with this sort of simple. It seems like a simple answer to a complicated question. Is that it's an exception to the rule that always this shechita was kosher. We just never knew it until basically Mashiach is going to tell us.
This fish shechita?
Yeah, the fish shechting the animals.
Isn't that a separate question also of meat and fish?
Give me say l'chaim in the middle.
Okay.
Doesn't say they're going to eat it at the same time.
I'm saying
Wait, but what a fish
touch, the connectivity of it.
Nah.
A fish shechting
You can do a little bit of scrape away the place they touched. Anyway, by the time you salt it and wash it, you don't have any problems there.
Like the fish, the place has a
The bigger question is this fish? What kind of fish is this? It's like
where did it get its
the stomach's like a whale.
First of all, it's kosher. Second of all, where did it get pizza?
Alright, classes.
No, that you can check the simanim.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna get to turn them on now. That's the end of it. All right, so the Rebbe said the previous attempts to answer this question was that it was a horat shah. Horat shah means that a prophet is allowed to come along and temporarily suspend the laws of the Torah for anything except for idol worship. And that was like the best that the sages came up with, basically, in terms of trying to explain how this shechita was going to be kosher. But the Rebbe says that that's not a good reason. Why is that?
What's not a good reason?
But the principle of horas shah, which means a temporary ruling of a prophet who can come in and suspend the laws of the Torah if he needs to, like Elijah did, right? Why does that not work in this case? Because that's not called Torah Chadasha. This is the Rebbe's knocks down the other answers that were given throughout history in order to sort of develop his answer. And he says that it's impossible that the way that this is going to become kosher is by a horat shah. Not that a horat shah could not kosher a shechita like this, that would be fine. But then the Gemara wouldn't come up with the answer that it's Torah Chadasha mi'ititeitzei, because that's already part of the old Torah. Right? That's not, you don't need a new Torah of Mashiach to tell you that. So therefore the Rebbe says, no, the inyan is that it's already contained inside of the Torah, it's hidden deeply in there, like the whole thing like we just said, like It's basically, you need to learn this by prophecies. Some prophet, right, is going to have to come up with this, but then explain to you why this is the case, because he's a chacham wiser than Shlomo. So the rest of the sikha is basically that. It's the Rebbe being a chacham wiser than Shlomo, explaining to us why this prophetic understanding that this particular law was and must have been already part of the kosher shechita. Why must human minds understand that? Why like, how's he going to make that acceptable to us intellectually? And so we're off, basically. Okay. All right. So now we're going to take it from inside page 180. Levi Baruch Hashem has his copy.
Did the Rebbe really?
So this is a proof that I'm not hallucinating. Copies were given, 10 of them. Do you have yours, Baruch, somewhere?
This is proof only one was given.
No, impossible. I made the copies myself. I handed them out. I remember the whole thing, and here's my proof. That's all true. I will testify to all of that information.
Polygraph?
Yeah, whatever it takes, man. There's a serious lack of shmira going on over here with these copies.
The
I'm not
Rebbe
going to be
believed that
responsible.
his father-in-law was the Mashiach. Is that what I was told?
The Rebbe said, yeah, it seems that way. Okay, page 180, the bottom paragraph for he who has the copy. So he says here, interestingly, it is a bracket. This whole thing is a big bracket, sort of a parenthetical statement. Yesh lahosi, we want to add, shemitzinu dugmaso gam b'horat shah. We find an example of this in the principle of horat shah. What's horat shah?
Temporary.
Right, temporary prophetic heter. Kamosha kasuv haragachav. And this is what the Ragachavar says, right? Who's the Ragachavar? Ragachavar Gon. He was the great Gon in the time of the Rebbe. Gave the Rebbe smicha. He's one of the people that gave the Rebbe smicha, and he was basically one of the finest of the generation. And the Rebbe quotes him very often, and the Rebbe sort of takes after him in certain ways in his shitas. So here's an interesting place where he brings this whole thing down in the name of the Ragachavar.
And the Ragachavar is not a giant train monster?
What's that? Os. It's Os. I don't know. Os Hey. It's page 180, bottom paragraph on the right side. Oh, there's my witnesses now. Whoever wants to play this game, it's just going to get worse for you as we go. All right. So the Ragachavar says like this regarding the Horat Shah of Eliyahu on Har Carmel. Right. So the famous Horat Shah that we brought up last time, Eliyahu Hanavi is wanting to admonish the people of his generation. So he tells the idol worshippers, there were people who didn't know what to serve Hashem or to serve the Baal, the idol. So he says they were sitting on two sides of the fence. So he sets up he tells them to make an altar for their God, where they think their God is, and he's going to make an altar for Hashem, and they offer up sacrifices, and his thing is whoever sacrifice will be answered from above with a fire from heaven. Everyone will know to follow him. And of course, God answered Eliyahu. But the point is that you're not allowed to bring up sacrifices outside the Beis HaMikdash already for a long time before Eliyahu Navi. So his permission of that was called a Horat Shah. Seemingly, that's like the classic example of a Horat Shah.
I was going to ask you that isn't the one thing that the Horat Shah does not work for was Avodah Zarah.
No, I mean...
I thought the Horat Shah was that he was telling them to wait for their God. You're saying the Horat Shah was to build a Jewish Bama.
Yeah, no, of course. He wasn't, God forbid, permitting them to serve Avodah Zarah. He was doing the exact opposite. He was saying, in other words, what does it mean Horat Shah for Avodah Zarah would mean a prophet, God forbid, comes along and says, I'm permitting you to serve idols, right? He was doing the exact opposite. He was showing the whole world once and for all that there is no such thing as idols. So,
What's a Horat Shah again?
Horat Shah means a temporary ruling of a prophet to give a heter to some law in the Torah. All right, so this is Eliyahu Hanavi. This is the Ragachavar's explanation. This itself is a huge piece of Torah right here. That's very bring down, even like separate from the whole awesome sikha that it's part of. This is just really an interesting analysis. So he says, we learned the Horat Shah from what it says, Hishamar lecha pen taleo lasecha b'chol makom asher tireh. Quote from Parshas Re'eh in Sefer Dvarim, that guard yourself lest you shall bring up an offering in any place that you see. In other words, in any old place that you want. That's a mitzvah in the Torah. Don't bring up offerings outside the Beis HaMikdash. And then the sages come along and they learn out. So it says, right there, it says, guard yourself lest you bring up an offering in any place you want. And like the follow-up sort of last name to that sentence is, it's not obviously not in the Torah, it's a drasha of the Chazal, but you can bring up an offering anywhere the prophet will tell you, Kasher hala Eliyahu Bahar HaKarmel, like Eliyahu brought up on Har Carmel. So right inside of the pasuk of the Easter of bringing up a sacrifice outside the Beis HaMikdash, the sages learned out from that pasuk itself that there's an exception to the rule that if a prophet tells you to do it, you can.
So is that proving Harat Shah, or is that saying that this isn't the case of Harat Shah because Harat Shah is built into the halacha?
So let's find out. We're getting to that. Good call.
And I thought that's Navi Sheker that says that to do something against the Torah.
No, that's someone who tries to change the Torah. A Navi who tries to temporarily change the Torah, he's allowed to. A Navi Sheker is first of all, he's not a real prophet, which means that he's not fit to listen to in the first place. But if he makes signs and wonders somehow, that God will give him the rights to make signs and wonders and fool you into thinking he's a prophet, if he tells you to change the Torah, in other words, that the mitzvahs don't count anymore. Let's just take out the old famous Navi Sheker, he says now you don't have to keep the mitzvahs, you just love your fellow man in your heart. Then he's a Navi Sheker, you can't uproot the Torah. But a prophet who's like this was the Yashka situation, right? But if a prophet who is already known to be a prophet and he has been tested as a prophet and he comes and just temporarily tells you to do something that the Torah doesn't allow you to do, as long as it's not avodah zarah and it's only temporary, you have to listen to him. Anyway, getting back to the point, we learned this, that Eliyahu was allowed, or any Navi is allowed to build an altar outside of the Mikdash from the very verse that tells you you're not allowed to build an altar outside the Mikdash. And Alter picked this one up right away. I'm pretty impressed by that, I must say. But it says, seemingly, what is the need for a special limud on this topic over and above the general concept of a Horat Shah, which comes from a different pasuk, right? The Horat Shah is in Parshas Shoftim. It says, Alav Tishma'un, right? You shall listen to the prophet, and it says over there that that's the mitzvah of even if he tells you to do something you're not supposed to do, you have to, or the Torah tells you not to do, you have to listen to him. So again, there's Alav Tishma'un, which means to him you shall listen. And then and that's telling you generally the concept of a Horat Shah. Why do we need over here, when the pasuk tells you you're not allowed to bring an offering, that there's a special limud, but you are allowed to bring an offering if a prophet tells you? Because the Indian of Horat Shah is afilu omer lecha avor alachas mikol mitzvah shebetorah hakol lefi shah shamalo. The whole concept of a Horat Shah is that even if he tells you to transgress one of the mitzvahs of the Torah, since it's temporary, you must listen to him. So here's the Rugged Shavar's Chiddush, and this is really, in a certain sense, like the basis of the Rebbe's whole analysis over here. That the Chiddush b'zeh she'ein alav shem schutei chutz klal v'havei carbon, and this, I guarantee you, no one ever knew this before. Like, it's a huge Chiddush. I mean, it's a Rugged Shavar's Chiddush, but the Rebbe's bringing it out for the world to see. That what the point is that to answer Alter's question now, that it's telling you that that Eliyahu brought the carbon is not in the category of Horat Shah. It's to tell you that there's the name of schutei chutz, right, which of schecting something outside the Beis HaMikdash for a sacrifice is not even called on this sacrifice of Eliyahu Hanavi for a second. He didn't have to disrupt the laws of the Torah and undo the Easter of bringing sacrifices outside of the Beis HaMikdash, because there was an exception to the rule of bringing sacrifices outside of the Beis HaMikdash, which we learn from that pasuk itself, that if a prophet will come and tell you to do it, you're allowed. Which means it doesn't have to go into the category of a temporary suspension of the laws of the Torah, Because a shechita outside of the Beis HaMikdash, accomplished by a prophet who tells you to do it temporarily, is part of the laws of offering sacrifices.
Why can't you say a prophet does that, or the Hebrews words, or Shabbat?
Say it again. Elav Tishma'un?
No.
I don't know what you're saying.
That
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Hi.
I've been there.
Why can't you say the prophet is just does the exception?
No, so that's how everybody in the world before the Rogatchover learned this.
Right.
That Eliyahu Navi was activating the law of Horat Shah.
Yeah.
But no, because
The law of Horat Shah.
Horat
What?
Shah means a temporary suspension of the laws of the Torah by a prophet.
But what is
For the 5th time.
no? What is the law they're talking about? Is it a specific law?
Oh, that one?
Yeah. Like
So,
they're referring to?
yeah, offering a sacrifice outside of the Beis HaMikdash.
Oh, okay.
All right?
That's the law they're thinking of changing, or they're discussing.
In this case. Yellow and Makara.
So here's the thing, Baruch.
Yeah.
That's how the whole world learned it up until now.
Yeah.
But because in the very verse that it tells you not to bring sacrifice out of the Beis HaMikdash, and I'll quote it again for you. It says, "Hishamar lecha penta le'olasecha b'chol makom asher tireh." Guard yourself lest you bring an offering any place you want. And then together with that, the sages right on that pasuk said, "But you aval ata male b'chol makom sheyomer lecha navi." But you can bring up an offering anywhere the prophet tells you. So if there's already a different mitzvah somewhere else in the Torah which tells me that a prophet can tell me to do whatever he wants, why do you have to tell me specifically on this mitzvah where you're prohibiting me to bring a sacrifice out of the Beis HaMikdash that however a prophet can do it if he wants to? You don't need to tell me that over there. I'll know from the general principle of a Horat Shah that he can do anything he wants anytime as long as it's not a Avodah Zarah. So the fact that there's a special limud in there is coming to teach you that that part of the laws of not sacrificing out of the Beis HaMikdash, to begin with when it was given, is that Eliyahu Hanavi is allowed to. It's like an exception to the rule of sacrificing outside of the Beis HaMikdash. He doesn't need to rely on the temporary suspension of the rule, because it's part of the rule that it was designed into it that a prophet will tell you to sacrifice outside of the Beis HaMikdash. You're allowed. It's not a Horat Shah. It's part of the laws of the of offering sacrifices outside of the Beis HaMikdash.
Why don't we do
that in
that?
general you're not allowed, but if a prophet tells you, you are allowed.
I got you.
Wait,
That's a big chiddush,
I got you.
right?
why don't
and
we do that though? That seems like we should.
Well, you
be
need
doing
a prophet first
The
to
Rabbi,
tell you.
he wasn't-
Yeah, but he didn't tell us to do a sacrifice out of the Beis HaMikdash. So
A prophet,
when he-
someone that can
when he
tell
tells
you,
you,
teacher,
when he tells you, then we'll be
America
the
will
first
fall.
ones to do it.
now we
Okay.
can sacrifice.
This is all still in the parenthetical. We're all...
Yep.
Okay.
We're still inside this bracket, but it's very much telling. It's bracket material, but this is exactly what the Rebbe is trying to say is the case with the schect of the Shorabar. Right? This is his point. That's what I say. This is like the foundation pin of the seichel and the logic behind what the Rebbe is saying. Because for the Rebbe to come along and say, guess what? What's the hechsher on this shechita? It was always kosher. That's it best prophecy. Because if he doesn't explain to us why that has to be the case, then basically it's either prophecy or heresy. You can't just come along and decide. Serious. You can't just come along and decide. Someone's going to go do something usher, and you're going to come and say, "Oh, don't worry, trust me. He was allowed to do that from this time of Sheshis Mei Bereshis. It's part of the Torah. He's allowed to do that. You can't just say that, right? That's like." It's an interesting idea, but it's basically you're tampering with what's permissible and what's not permissible. You see what I'm saying? But if it's prophecy that Mashiach is receiving like a nevuah, that such a thing, it happens to be kosher and it was always part of the laws of shechita, then you're going to have to be like wiser than Shlomo, basically, to explain to me according to the principles of the Torah why that has to be like that. And that, you see what I'm saying there? And that's what the Rebbe is getting into that. He's starting to show us that this concept of saying that there's an exception to the rule is not so crazy. It's part of Torah. And my teacher, the Rogatchover, did it himself when it came to the law of this Eliyahu Hanavi business. That he showed that there was already a heter built into a certain prohibition that didn't require a Horat Shah. It didn't require a prophet to come along and change any rules, because the rule for Eliyahu Hanavi to build this altar was part of the original Torah when God gave it. He was an exception built in. Right? So that's a significant move that the Rebbe is making there in order to prove his point, that there is such a concept.
So for the schecting that's already built in as part of, you can do the exception if it's a
Right.
Navi, or there's already built in someplace else in the Torah that you can check this way.
Exactly.
Somewhere else.
Which
Not
one
here.
is it for the,
Not the
for
Navi.
the schecting?
They're both called schechting. So which do you mean? Do you mean the
For the fit.
for the no? So the Rebbe's claim is that we can't say it's a horat shah because that's not called like Torah chadasha. It's already an old mitzvah,
right.
and therefore the Rebbe is like saying, so what is it? It's that it was always there as an exception to the rule.
Like with an Eliyahu.
And as a proof to the fact that there is such a precedent of that in Torah, he brings this concept of Eliyahu Navi from that only the Rogatchover knew this, basically, but he brings out the Rogatchover that you see, that's also not a Horat Shah, right? It was also built into the rule that even though you're not allowed to offer sacrifices outside, this one you could. So it's already, Mamash has precedent, such a concept.
Was that shock?
What's that?
Was that shock that you do that?
Was that
Shock? Was it?
Horat Shah?
No, shock.
Oh, Peshat? Okay, according to the Rogatchover, it's Peshat. In other words, that's the law.
It's within the pasuk.
No one ever said this before. No, this is the Rogatchover's Chiddush. You could see it in the pasuk, sort of, but no, not anyone before the Rogatchover. That was his Chiddush.
Is there a different example of Horat Shah?
Horat Shah?
Yeah. Is there a different example of that in the Torah somewhere?
I mean, like when did it happen in history?
Yeah. Is this
I don't
like the
know.
only example?
No. In general, a prophet can do that.
I feel like the whole Morano period could be called the Harat Shah, like, you know, that you could break Shabbos. But it wasn't like changing the laws of Shabbos. It was like...
That's already in the state of pikuach nefesh, though. You don't need a Horat Shah for that. I don't know. I have to look into it, but there's definitely the point is any prophet can do that, you know. So, going on, but it's very interesting because you're up until now that was the great like example of Horat Shah. And it was when everyone wants to bring an example of Horat Shah, they always talk about Eliyahu Navi. It's not Horat Shah. That's what the Rogatchover is saying. It's not even an example of that. It's already part of the rules of a different mitzvah. Okay. Hainu she'ein ze heter la'avur ala isur de shchutei chutz. The Rebbe is just continuing what we already said. This is not a heter, a permissibility to engage in the prohibition of shechting outside the Beis Hamikdash. Ki im shebezeh lo ne'amar melechatchila isur de shchutei chutz. But rather, this act of Eliyahu Hanavi was never to begin with part of the isur of shchutei chutz, of shechting outside the Beis Hamikdash. Right? Just to conclude. And this is exactly, the Rebbe says, what I'm going for here. This is the same thing as the chiddush of the shchita of the shurabar with the fins of the liasan. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to reveal chiddush Torah, right, and you're seeing it right here for the first time. That it's a chiddush she'ein yochol lizgalus bizman hazeh al yedei talmid vasek. It's a chiddush that a regular human being, a regular talmid vasek, even a regular sage could not come up with. Only Hashem Almighty can come up with such a chiddush, which means the Rebbe is busy coming up with this chiddush. That the laws of shchita, from to begin with, were never referring to this particular shchita. This is something that only can be known from God. You could never figure this out if you were just a regular man.
But then it will fit him shot.
No, it's already fitting him. This is like the craziest thing that ever. Unless someone's going to come along and just be like, Rabbi Pasternak, you're an idiot. This is much simpler than it looks. I've been reading this Sikha for years. What if not this is the Rebbe doing right here? He's basically coming and telling you that no human being could ever come up with this. This is something which is only derived from prophecy, and it says in the Mishnah, and it says in the Gemara. This is in the category of Torah Chadasha mi'iti teitzeh. This is the example. When we're looking for of Mashiach's Torah that no man could know, it has to come straight from God. And he says right here that no human being would ever be able to come up with such a thing. And what is it that he's going to come up with? That the laws of Shechita, to begin with, contained the heter of the Shechita of the Shurabor. Is the big ox, and it's not in the realm of Horat Shah, and it's not a change in Torah because it was already there. This is the great work of Mashiach that no man can ever figure out. And here's the Sikha. Right? It's just so insane, basically. What do you want?
Can you go over this again?
We're going to go over it for days and days and days and days.
When you left the room, we discussed that the Rogatchover is actually a giant train monster. So I saw that you were a little confused in the class. These are giant train monsters. He came to visit the Rebbe.
And now they have to speak.
Yeah.
Draw that.
No pun intended. Yeah.
Okay.
Va'av shechidush zeh she'enu yechol lizgalos al yedei talmid vasik. And even though this chiddush that's not able to be revealed through a regular sage, shalom al pi klalei Torah, who's learning through the normal principles of the Torah, of the pardes and like the rules of engagement of the Torah, it could never be learned by anybody. Kim aydei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, only from Hashem Himself. Right? Even though that's the case here, I'm just reading. Eino bichlal haTorah shelo b'shamayim. It's not. It doesn't get thrown into the klal that Torah is lo b'shamayim. Right? There's another thing the Mashiach has to be careful with, is that he's not allowed to bring things. Even though he's not allowed to prophesize new laws, because that's not the way Torah works. So even if the Rebbe is going to be a prophet and going to come along and say, "Hey guys, guess what? This law was never part of the laws of shechita, and lechatchila, it's permissible," you're really not allowed to do that. You can't just like throw out prophecy. It has to be, if it's Torah, it has to mamash be brought through the intellectual rigor of Torah and proven al pi Torah. So even though really this is like I said, it's either heresy or prophecy. You can't just come in and say such a thing like that, because even if you are a prophecy and not a heretic, it's still not permissible, because that's called Torah's lo b'shamayim. You're not allowed to come from heaven and say laws, right? He says, nonetheless, this is not part of the difficulty of Torah lo b'shamayim. The Torah is not in heaven. And why is that? Yesh Shlomo Melech HaMashiach, because the King Messiah, who is a Baal Chochma Yosem Shlomo, who's wiser than Shlomo, Yevayer v'yilamed haChidush Torah. He's going to come and explain and teach this Chidush Torah into the Beis Din HaGadol Shebi Yerushalayim, in the Beis Din HaGadol, in other words, to the Sanhedrin, basically, which is like the head and those who Torah has to come out of them. In such a way that it's going to be accepted by them in the grasp and the understanding of the intellect of the Sanhedrin, right? Al pi klalei Torah. In other words, so they're going to sit and they're going to debate this. They're going to rule. Yeah, 100%. This makes sense. So it's going to be something that is going to come out of the Torah. Even though it's originated from a prophecy, it's going to be then explained in such a way, which we're doing right now, that it totally makes sense and it couldn't be any other way. And the Sanhedrin is going to like paskin al pi Torah that is the case. So it doesn't clash with the concept that it's just pure prophecy. Because if it makes sense al pi seichel, then it's intellectual, then it's Torah. V'kevan shehem ikar Torah shebal peh, v'hem amudi hora, since they are the Torah shebal peh, the Sanhedrin, and they are the pillars of hora, of Torah, umehem chaku mishpat yotzi l'chol Yisrael, he's quoting the Rambam, and from them goes out justice and law to all of the Jewish people. So if they agree to it, that's because it's gone through the rigors of the Torah. And therefore also this Chidush Torah that came from God, from me, God speaking, this will become like one of the things that they learned it from what's called Pi Shmuel, like they got like a tradition from Moshe Rabbeinu. But then they took this tradition and they inserted it into their own das. Right? There's a lot of things that are called halacha l'Moshe Sinai, basically. Right? It's just like we have these, but they went and they like intellectualized it and made it part of the klalim of Torah that makes sense to us. And then it comes clear to them in their minds and their intellect that such a law is such. You following this? Okay, next chapter. So that being, we're putting this whole thing a little bit down for a second. Since these two things, which is the Chiddush of the Hisgalus Taimi V'Sodas HaTorah, the revelation of the secrets of Torah, and the Chiddush and the halachas of the Torah, which says there's the two prongs of Mashiach's, what he brings to the table, and which is officially the heter of the Shechita Shurabor V'Snapira Al-Biyasin. Like, let's not take it too far. What is the halacha is going to be mechadish is the Shechita of the Shurabor. He's not changing any of the other halachas so far as we know. So these two things, They are the two perushim of Torah Chadasha. That's what it means, Torah Chadasha, a new Torah. So Mistaber Lomer, so it must be Sheish Kesher v'Shaychus b'neihem. There must be a connection between them. Why? It must be a connection that the halacha that Mashiach is going to change, the shechita, must be all bound up with the concept of him revealing secrets of the Torah that no man can ever find. In other words, that if that's the one law he's going to change, and with that he's also going to reveal the Panimius HaTorah in ways that no one's ever seen, it must be that those two things are totally related to each other. And that's because the Chiddush and the Halach of the Torah is connected and comes as an outcome, a result of the revelation of the Panimius HaTorah. In other words, this little halacha that we just stumbled on is only like that. It can only be known because Mashiach is going to come and reveal all the secrets of the Torah. That is the only way that such a concept could ever come out is because part and parcel with that, he's showing us all the mysteries that only God knows. He's the Sar of Hasidus, basically. We have to understand. What is the connection of this Chiddush Torah, that the concept of this shechita was an exception to the rule and it was l'chatchila never said in the laws of shechita? What is the connection of that to the revelation of the secrets of the Torah? Right? It's a very specific question. What's the concept that this law was contained inside of the original laws of shechita and never revealed, right? To the whole concept of revealing all the secrets of the Torah. Which is why this Chiddush will only come out in the future when Torah Chadasha say, when the new Torah comes out. In other words, we're only going to get this piece of information when all the secrets of the Torah are revealed to us. Right? When the secrets of Torah come out. What's the connection? Why couldn't we have known this before we got all the secrets of the Torah to come out?
Why wouldn't there be possibly new halacha with the new Torah to excite?
Whatever's going to be, will be. But in terms of what we know to be called Torah Chadash Me'itei Teitzei, there's only one example that is brought in the Gemara of a change in halacha. And it says that, how is this going to be a kosher shechita? And it says Mashiach is going to come and bring a new Torah. So in other words, we for sure know that. Right? So why is it that this piece of information, now he's asking, could only be known when Mashiach comes and brings all the secrets of the Torah simultaneously? Why does that go together? Now keep that in mind because we're going to go into a lot of different places all of a sudden. So we'll probably have to keep in mind next time. But this is like the driving question behind everything. We want to explain this by first prefacing an example of all this that we're talking about, of the Shinoi V'Hilchas HaTorah Lasi Lavo. So this gets back into your question, and De'el's also, it's not seemingly the only halacha that's going to change in the future. There's a whole other conversation about halachas changing in the future, and from that we're going to understand this. Right, so the change in halacha of the Torah of the future, shekashor im dargan nailis yosha shebetorah, and also there, when we discussed halachas changing, it's also part of a larger conversation about a higher form of intellect being revealed. That halacha changes when the secrets come out, and this is nogea lepluktos beis Shammai and beis Hillel. We find this regarding Hillel and Shammai. It says in the Gemara, shlosh shanim nechlaku beis Shammai beis Hillel. It says, for 3 years, the house of Hillel and the house of Shammai argued. Halalu omrim halacha kamoseinu. These said the halacha is like us. Halalu omrim halacha kamoseinu. These said that no, the halacha is like us. 3 years it went on like this. Yatza baskol. It must have been confusing to be a regular Jew at that time. Mamish. They didn't conclude what Torah said, and there was serious rabbis arguing with each other. There was no conclusion. So after this, the Hashem didn't like this scenario. So a baskol came out, the Amra, and said the famous quote, Eilu ve'eilu divrei Elokim chaim. These and these are the words of the living God, and halacha k'beis Hillel.
Yeah.
Right? But the people oftentimes forget to quote that part. The halacha is like beis Hillel. Right? So God basically came and told them.
But now,
What's that? The halach is like Beis Hillel. Yeah.
What does that mean?
What's that?
What does that mean?
Beis Hillel was one side of the
Hillel.
argument. Hillel. It wasn't Hillel himself. That's another important thing to remember. Hillel and Shammai actually hardly ever argued. I think the whole Torah, they only argued about 5 things, ever. But Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, their students argue about every single thing in the Torah. It's just like a generation later, you can see how the Torah like fell. We just read the end of Sota. It said that there was a time when there was something called an eshkol. It's like a cluster, but eshkol means shakol bo, that everything was in them. There were sages that they had every single thing in them, and there was never a machlokas in Israel. There was no law that was not known. There was a long period of Jewish history that there was no machlokas. No one ever argued about anything because everybody knew all the laws.
This is not Jewish.
It's interesting though. It's
When
mamish,
was this?
It's mamish Jewish,
When was this?
right? What's not Jewish actually to argue, believe it or not.
This is like pre-Mishnah days, like.
This is when was it? No, yeah, it was pre-Mishnah days. Pre-Mishnah days, yeah. It says the first law they ever argued about, I believe, was something having to do with the today. Actually, it's like the union of bringing karbanos on Yom Tov. Whether you can or you can't, I have to look it up. I forget exactly, but it was something about the Chagiga offering. Today, by the way, we're supposed to all be bringing our Chagiga offerings to the Beis HaMikdash. These 7 days of Tashlumim, 6 days of Tashlumim of Shavuos. We're still in Shavuos. So this was something regarding that in you that they were arguing about. What's that? Yeah, it's all tikkunim from here on out. Anyway, it looks like we're going to have to pick this up tomorrow. We're going to get into the whole idea of halacha changing regarding Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. What? Do you have another side of the copies? This is the last one. So we'll make more copies tomorrow.
That was a good one, Rob.
Hurry up. I appreciate it. Yom Tov is fantastic. You can share my copies of yours. What? It's supposed to be you.
Here, give us the bell, would you?
No,
Thank you.